Welcome Internet. In this video we are going to talk about reference data types inside of Unreal. Earlier we were talking about primitive data types. A primitive data type works like this. You got a variable with the name x. It is stored at your memory at x001 and the value is 500. That simplified how a primitive data type works. A reference data type works like this. You got a variable y and it's located at 002. And instead of the value, which would be an object, it just has a reference to the real object, which is located at x100. So the real big difference is, in a primitive variable, you got inside the variable address the value. And in a reference data type, inside the variable address, you just got a reference to the real object. This is why it is called a reference type. It's not really that important, but it's still nice to know. A reference type I want to cover today is a string. What is a string? A string is a sequence of characters, something like letters, numbers, or some symbols. So this is a string, and Unreal knows about 3 types of strings. One is a name, another one is string, and the last one is a text. So what is the difference between those? One big point is the size of them. 8 bytes for a name, the double size 16 bytes for a string, and the biggest one is text with 40 bytes. So obviously if you want to transfer information over the network, you want to prefer a name because it's half the size of a string. And the other thing which is different between those string types is the functions you can call. So let me show you. I prepared here some examples. As you can see here, string is really very easy to be manipulated, something like cast to lower string or to upper letters and reverse the string, append strings, and you also can cast it to different types, something like integer, float or name. So you can use it everywhere where you need to manipulate the string, and in general it's recommended for something like save game names. I prepared here a little example. We test if these 2 strings are the same. Obviously we would say no, it's not, so let's call it. So, and as you can see, we are right, it is false. That's because it is not the same case. It's one times it's lower letters and one times it's upper letters. So let's go to the name. Here is a big difference. I prepared the same example, but the big difference is it is case insensitive. So when we try this out, you will see it is true. So that's a nice feature if you want to use it for something like IDs, so you don't have to remember how it was written exactly. So that's a big plus for the name. And you also have some possibilities to manipulate or build a string. The last available type for string would be a text. A text is, as I said, the biggest one, and it's recommended for everything that is displayed to the user. So if you use something in your user interface, you should use a text. And as you can see, it's not possible to append something, even though you can cast it to lower or to upper letters. So another reference data type I want to cover is the vector. As you can see, a vector is just a collection of 3 float values. You also can use 3 different float values to create one vector, and if you like to, you can break a vector. You can do this in 2 ways. You can drag a line out and type break, or you just can click right button on the pin and tell it to split the pin. This is another possibility for that. When do you need a vector? If you want to store something like the location of an item, or to set a color with 3 different values. So another possibility is the rotator, and here it's the same with the string types. You got different options you can call, different functions, As example, you couldn't call a delta rotator from the vector. So even though it just has three float values, like the vector, it's not really the same, and you have different possibilities you can choose from. You can also break it down, or you can also split the pins. So the last vector-based reference type I got here is the transform. And as you can see, when you break it down the first time, you got a location, a rotation, and a scale. So inside the transform, you got three vectors. And if you break them down, you can see inside there are 9 float values. You can also use the split pin structure. So I prepared a little example for you. As you can see, I just placed here a cube inside our view. And as you can see on the right side, we got here transform, and you also have the values for location, rotation, and scale. And if I change the values here, you will see it will be updated in the view. The location can be changed, the rotation can be changed, and also the scale can be changed. So as you can see, a transform represents a character inside our 3D world. If you want to create a character or an object inside your map, you can use a transform. So you can tell it the location, the rotation, and even the scale. And also if you want to save the position of an enemy, you can use a transform. Another data type I want to cover is a struct. You can go to your content browser, click the right mouse button, go to blueprint, and then here you got structure. I already prepared a structure, as you can see here. What is a structure? A structure is just a container that stores different values. As you can see, I prepared here HP for a player, which is a float value, same with energy, a level, which is represented by a byte, the experience, which uses an integer, a name, which uses a string, the image, which uses another reference type, a texture 2D, and a boolean. On the button here you can see a little preview how it will look like. Inside our blueprint, that's what it looks like. You can also break it down, or you can split the pins. And it is very handy because, as you can see here, it represents a complete player. I can also go back to our struct, add a new type, and add a transform. And when we go back to our blueprint, you will see here the transform. So this is really handy if you want your own structure. Another type I want to cover is the enum. It's the same, you go back to your content browser, press the right mouse button, go to blueprints, and then you will see here enumeration. I also prepared an enumeration. And as you can see, it's just a list with, in our example, apple, banana, and strawberry. And when we go back to our blueprint, you can see how usually or often an inventory is used. Often I see some solutions like you got an inventory ID and the ID is 0, and then you check, is it a 0, and if it is a 0 then print apple, if it is a 1 print banana, if it is a 2 then print strawberry. But if you use an enumeration, you don't need to do that. You don't have to remember the number for your item name, you just can select an apple or a banana or a strawberry. If you look closely, you can see that I don't even use here a given string. I just pull out the string of my item itself. Instead here I was using a string inside the print string. So when you scroll down, you can see you can also replace it with a blueprint like this. So these are the advantages of these types I would really recommend you to use. That's it for this video, and I hope I see you later.
Subscribe. Like the video.